Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Del Barcy. And as always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. And today it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Deborah Finn-Romero out of California, USA. Dr. Romero is an educator. She's an assistant professor at California State University in Sacramento. She's part of the American Nurses Association in California. She's got a focus with on advocacy and social determinants of health. So welcome, Dr. Romero.
Thank you so much, Dale. Please call me Deborah.
Will do.
Yeah.
So first of all, what made you become a nurse?
Well, this will get a little personal. I think every
That's
nurse's
okay.
journey is unique, and usually it's something personal in their heart. Um, my father in the 1980s contracted AIDS, and when he was transitioning towards the end of life,
Uh-huh.
uh, I went to help care for him. And he had a hospice nurse that was there. And, my father was a very, willful sort. And he just absolutely refused to do anything that was recommended for his care. And I don't know what she did, but she had just a grace and a beauty about her and was so tender, even with humor, was able to get him to agree for moving into a higher level of care for the end of his days. And when I was caring for him, I had a moment where I was washing his back and cleaning him, and I literally had a sense of awe come over me, an
Yeah.
epiphany
Mhm.
almost. And I was established very well in another career, another discipline. And I just had this recognition that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And it was one of the gifts that one of the greatest gifts of my life. And it came to me through my father's care. So
Yeah.
it was transformative.
I can understand that. I can understand that. So, wow, this is quite a path though, because you're coming, it's a second career and you are caring for someone in the 1980s, who's in the midst of of an endemic that we have very little knowledge about, and someone who's so very close to you. Um, it seems to me it's quite an emotional path to walk to actually get there. So, what challenged you the most?
Uh, you mean in terms of becoming a nurse or just in providing the care? I mean, in becoming the nurse, I also had small children. Uh,
Mm,
and married, and I was the breadwinner, and my husband was still in college and finishing his degree. And I came home from this trip, and I looked at him, and I just said, "I'm going to become a nurse. I don't know how it's going to happen and how it's going to work out, but I'm going to do it." And he, being the wonderful man that he is, kind of looked at me and said, "Oh, okay, we'll figure it out. Not okay, And the universe seems to kind of conspire. I think that's been my experience that when I pick a path, things change in my reality.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
the organization that I was working for was going through a very complex merger, and they began closing departments, including mine. And they gave me an option of severance or moving into another area, and I took the severance.
yeah.
And with a lot of gratitude. What's interesting is they wrote me my package on my actual birthday and delivered it a couple of days later. And I thought, all right, this is a sign. And, I believe in divine providence coming in and guiding. That's just part of my own experience. Uh,
Yes.
and so the forward path started. Back to college I went and spent probably 20 years in total to get through my doctorate. A little bit here, a little bit there,
Yeah.
working, just a working path, associate's degree in nursing,
Hmm.
and worked bedside, and did a lot of cardiac care. That was my main specialty, which I absolutely love, cardiac care. And then Went on for my bachelor's and eventually the master's and then the doctorate. And I did bedside care all the way through just until 2022 is when I stepped away from bedside. So um, and actually I was in oncology at that point, and I
Yeah.
have a great passion for caring for oncology patients still. That's I love cardiac medicine, but I love oncology patients. Yeah, yeah.
And you just talked about something that I actually honestly do believe in. You talked about divine intervention.
Hmm.
And I really honestly believe that when we step into something um purely in a pure sense,
Right.
it actually everything comes together to
Yeah,
walk us through that path.
yeah. I do feel like it's been I'm going to use the word destiny.
Mhm.
I don't have another verbiage for it. It's been the gift of my life. And hopefully I give enough to others that it's been well earned.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so many of us, I think, don't I don't know if we don't I don't want to say that we don't recognize what a gift it is, but I think we do, but
Mm.
often don't stop to appreciate what a huge gift it is.
Oh yes, it's a gift of a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
co-created. It definitely takes effort.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. It is as my children frequently remind me that, the reward for good work is more work, but there it
That's the
goes.
truth. Oh my goodness, that's the truth. Yeah.
So, but here we are. To me, I feel like we are on the brink of something very big, not just in healthcare and in nursing, but generally.
Mhm.
But in nursing, what do you think you want to see in the next 5 to 10 years? Because things are changing so quickly. What do you want to see?
Yeah, yeah, they are. I think nurses are often the unsung heroes of healthcare. Um, our profession really requires us to care for all people. It really, I mean, it's embedded into what nurses do. I think about Lillian Wald and the establishment of Henry Street Settlement in New York when the migrants came in, and the
Mhm.
city was just overrun, just
Yeah.
overrun, and there wasn't enough services in the infrastructure to support all the people coming in. And here comes a nurse, that has a vision to make sure that people get care. It doesn't matter where they come from, it doesn't matter who they are. They just are human beings that are suffering and struggling and they need support and care.
Yeah.
And that's been our heritage since the beginning of our profession and really defining what a nurse is. So where we're going in the future is that's our core essence and it must be retained no matter what. Society needs it. All the conversations about AI and how's this going to change healthcare and how we diagnose, all of that is fine in terms of utilizing technology as a way of understanding more, but
Hmm.
it doesn't replace human compassion. It doesn't replace that unique part that we bring as one human to another that understands what it is to suffer. You
Hmm.
know, the
Hmm.
gift of I always ask myself the question, like before my father had passed, I did a lot of reflection about what gift did this person give me? Because it was a conflicted relationship in many ways in the childhood. But what I came to was that he gave me the gift of compassion because he really taught me what it is to suffer. I watched him suffer. I
Hmm.
suffered. And on the other
Hmm.
side of that is my ability to be empathetic with another human being is actually my greatest strength. To
Yeah.
really sit down and be present with someone else. And I think the pull that we have in society where healthcare is going so technological, right?
Yeah.
If we don't keep the caring of what a nurse represents and what nurses do, uh, it's going to be a great cost to humanity. There is very little point in having a functioning human vessel physically without the joys of connection, without the joys of compassion, without um, really having the ability to embrace one another from a heart connection. And healthcare, there's a struggle amongst all the financial aspects of it. Nurses getting voices to share our stories as providers. Protecting the the identities and the personal aspects of patients. But that human touch, that human understanding, the critical thinking that we implement in everything we do is not acknowledged in healthcare. Our leaders don't
Right.
acknowledge it, and we have married it with love and compassion. And we call it caring science. Gene
Yes,
Watson
indeed.
talks about it in the
Yeah.
Caritas.
Yeah.
It is who we are as a profession and a core central thing that defines us. So I can't think of another profession that combines science like critical thinking, analytics with love and compassion. I'm sure they're out there. Maybe clergy has some of that. I don't know. It's not my field. Um,
Right.
but it's us as humans from one to the other. That's what makes us so um, essential
Yeah.
in moving
Yep.
forward. So we can't
Yep.
lose that.
Yep.
Like bring AI in, but you got to bring it in with love. You got to bring it in with discernment. You got to bring it in with critical thinking and the human element. If that's lost, then our society is going to miss out significantly.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
You,
just how I
you,
see it.
you very, very, very eloquently articulated uh, uh, an answer to a question that I sometimes ask.
Mhm.
Because one of the questions that I started to ask people is, what do they see as an essential quality of a nurse?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I typically ask them, tell me if you can tell me in one word, what word would that be? And principally because I think I started to recognize nurses and started to wonder if they recognize me. Just because, not even because anyone told me this person was a nurse, but
Mhm.
just by the very demeanor, the way they responded to other people, the way they read a room,
Mhm.
all of
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And so all of those things are embodied in like who we are.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are. They are. And the ability to assess a situation, a person and an entire environment, as well as a whole dynamic, the systems level thinking that's involved in being a nurse.
Yes.
That is it's part of how we're trained.
Yeah.
Uh, and and critical thinking evolves. You either walk in as a strong critical thinker, but when you walk out of nursing school, boy, you're critically thinking now,
You're
to
critically thinking,
evaluate.
yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So you strive to support communities, you say for you're an advocate and you talk about social determinants of health and things like
Mhm.
that. So as you strive to support communities to promote like positive health outcomes, what is your biggest struggle? What are the biggest obstacles you face?
Hmm. I don't know that it's the biggest, but it seems to be the constant
Uh-huh.
um, trend. There's a couple of them. Money, tying health to finances.
Mm-hmm.
Those that can pay get care, those that can't suffer more. Um, Distribution of justice across health. We have a whole code of ethics within our profession that we've agreed upon as nurses.
Yes.
And
Yes.
justice is one of them.
Mhm.
It's a core value that we don't determine that one person's life is of greater value than another. And yet we live in a capitalistic society that does make that
Yes.
determination,
Mm-hmm.
just inherent in our economic structure. When healthcare is dictated by finances, it really, really changes the ability for people to who gets care and who doesn't, and it drives a lot of the lack of equity
Yeah.
in care. You
Yeah.
know, in
Yeah.
one of my classes, I teach an introduction to professional nursing for very first semester students in there. And we talk a lot about ethics and we talk a lot about human-centered care, cultural humility. I'm very fortunate in the university that I teach with. We have, in my classroom, I could tell you I have two-thirds of my students that English is a second language.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're coming from all over the world. And they might have classmates that come from the culture that's in opposition
That's a
from where they
yes.
come from. And we have to come together with this common purpose. So we talk about the economics, why some groups of people have less access to care than others. And this ideology of the land of the free and striving and working for more. And, as you look at how the economy has changed over the last 3 or 4 decades, where minimum wage and cost of living are outpacing each other
Yes.
significantly,
Mhm.
significantly. So you can work, 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 but if you can't afford college, or if you afford college on loans, and now your loans are, private institutions
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
charging hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars, and now
Yeah.
refinancing and interest rates changing. And so the ability to even pay for that education, now it's work, 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 work just to get out of debt,
Yes.
not to get ahead, but
Yes.
and then it's the staggering uh range of insurance plans. When you have emergency insurance, but then you have a bill of
Yeah.
hundreds of $1,000.
Something.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yes.
So medical bankruptcy is a real thing. There's
It
homelessness
is.
that's driven by medical bankruptcy. So those to me is there's a systemic flaw that is at odds with human well-being.
Yeah.
And there is no one answer. Um, And so when you're working in a community that takes grassroots initiatives to begin to reach out and support other communities, we can do that, but we can't necessarily, as one person, make a whole structural shift. It really does take many, many, many voices, many people in think tanks to try and come up with systems. And then you've got to put it out there in a way that the people that are making the policies hear it and can receive it. And honestly, that all comes down to individual values.
Yeah.
So it's a big giant loop. It's a big giant loop. You still have to get down to human connection and human values. So you can talk every big structure in the world. You can talk about every system in the world, but it's still made up of individuals that are making decisions.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would say the financial component, and maybe fear would be the
Yeah.
other barrier. Um, if you want to talk about the values, I think people that don't understand um, the circumstances of others, there's judgment because they don't know. They've not walked in those shoes.
Yeah.
So they have assumptions, and so that can drive any of us. If we live in a place of assumptions about who others are, it's much easier to place blame and
Yeah.
judgment than it is to do self-reflection and say, gosh, I really don't know what that reality is because I haven't lived it. I'll only what I heard was what my mom told me, my grandfather told me, this person told me. We,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like that's separation. And so when you judge, when you place blame, you're actually creating a barrier of connection to you and
Yeah.
another human being. It's
Yeah.
again blocking compassion. And I think a lot of people in our society, at least in American culture, it might be a default. We talk about Christian values and loving values and spiritual values. And I almost look at that as more of something we aspire to rather
Mhm.
than what we live
We
in.
don't live it.
Yeah, yeah. So me, like any other person, I try and do better at living in it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully get that. And as you were speaking, it came to me as uh, when I still worked full time. One time, one of my jobs was staff development. And one of the things that I frequently referred to was I don't know if you remember, Pink Floyd was one of my favorite bands,
Oh
and
yeah.
that thing about breaking the wall, the break in the wall.
Hmm.
And the thing that I really wanted people to get is that really looking at other people as less than was really
Hmm.
kind of stupid because as they said, all in all, you're just another brick in the wall. And if we took the bricks at the bottom out, where would you be?
That's right. That's right. The foundation, you have to have every single person is important. Every
It's
single one.
important. Yes,
That's right.
exactly.
And I think a lot of hospitals began to understand that without EVS during COVID, boy, we're nothing.
Yeah,
We're nothing.
yeah, exactly.
I'm so grateful, so grateful they were willing to show up each day and take care
And
of the
just,
spaces and the
yeah,
environment that we were
yeah,
all just
yeah,
struggling so much
yeah,
in. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So, you have walked a quite an interesting path, and now you are an educator. So, what advice do you give someone who wants to be a nurse?
To be a nurse,
Hmm.
oh goodness, get good grades. Don't give up. Things don't always go the way that you think they should. Most nursing students, I think, the ones that really come in, they work so hard, but they beat themselves up. There is no one path. There is
Yes.
no one path. I would say those that aspire towards nursing education and maybe doctoral level, get your boots on the ground first and really understand what that world is to be at the bedside with the patients.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of wisdom in the path of going one step at a time, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
There are some programs that they put them into an NP before they've ever worked on the floor as an RN.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I think that can work for some. My own story says boots on the ground because if I hadn't spent, many hours and many years holding patients in suffering and their families in suffering, I don't think that I would be able to truly, in my own moral code, be able to advocate for policies that will affect them.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
so
I
it's a
get it.
full circle thing, and
Yeah.
part of it too is if you want to be a nurse, make sure that you're the type of person that you would want taking care of your most beloved family, right?
Yes.
So if you're going to be a
Yes.
nurse, don't worry, if you got to have integrity. It's a core value.
Yeah.
So when you go to school, you make sure that you operate in the values of what a nurse is as soon as you
Yes.
can understand them, right? Because it takes time.
Yes.
It takes
It takes
time to
time.
really get into the profession.
Hmm.
And if you want to be a nurse, it's a whole life identity. It's not just I'm going to go do my job and come home. It really morphs
Becomes.
our
Hmm.
whole perception and how we function in the world. So my advice is work hard, stay focused on what it is to be a good person, what it is to become that thing that you would want your nurse to be for your family.
Hmm.
It is a selfless job that has great benefits if you are able to
Yeah.
advocate and speak up on your patient's behalf and on your own behalf.
Hmm.
Self-care is crucial on the journey. You must
Yeah.
do self-care, whatever that looks like. It can't be drinking and smoking. It's got to be more like yoga and meditation and doing some artwork and laughing with friends. I mean, that's self-care.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, what do you do to care for you?
Oh yeah. So this weekend I'm taking some time off. We were wrapping up the end of the semester and I looked at my beloved husband and our dogs and I said, I'm leaving. I'm going away for 4 days by myself in the mountains. Gonna go to a little bit of go soak in some hot springs somewhere, go walk through an iris garden that nurtures my soul. I'll do some journaling. I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop and see some friends that live in a forest and spend a few days with them, maybe hit the ocean for a minute. I go to nature. I do
Yeah.
yoga. I do meditation. I do a lot of laughter. I have like most nurses, I have a very dark sense of humor, and I need to counter it with just levity and joy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I do crafts too. I do, a little crochet, a little sewing,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
painting, drawing. I literally make sure I carve time out that isn't about anyone else but me. I
Yeah.
get I get maybe 4 or 5 days a year that I might take off and I don't take care of anybody but me.
But
Uh, and
and
then
I understand that.
Yeah, yeah. And then, the daily routine of making sure get up, do a little stretching, eat right,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
those types of things that are more routine. I think that's in some ways more crucial, to make sure that each day I take a little time, um,
Yeah,
just to make sure my own health is taken care of, right? You didn't
yeah.
get a little older, you get a little creakier, you get a little, I'm only as good as this body is going to be able to carry me around. The
Mm-hmm.
mind works, but I'd like it if the body did too. So,
Yes, I
yeah,
know, I know,
they're
I know.
connected.
There are some of those things that we do to take care of ourselves are very big, or seem to be very big. Some of them are very simple, appear
Hmm.
to be very simple. What I have found is that the ones that appear to be very simple are actually, for me, really very big. So for me,
Hmm.
one of the things that I really, really like, or really gives me a sense of grounding and well-being, is that I love to see a well-made bed. My bed has to be made.
Oh,
It's,
yay!
I,
That is in my heart. My husband can't stand it. I want my bed made.
it does it for me. It sets the tone for so many things.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's beautiful. Putting your environment in order.
Yes, it has to be. It has to be. And then I can settle everything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Deborah, thank you so very much for this conversation. I really, truly have enjoyed it. Thank you so very
Thank you,
much.
Jen.